Hello, everybody. Welcome to Undefined. Today, I am very excited for my guest, and it is one of my personal favorite musicians, Patterson Hood from the Drive-By Truckers. He is currently on a solo tour with Craig Finn. He's had a big year. He put out a solo record called Exploding Trees and Airplane Screams, which is one of my personal favorite albums of the year. I just got to see him at Schulzfest, and he's going on another solo tour after the Craig Finn one in the South, and I will be at those Huntsville shows. I'm so excited to talk to Patterson. How are you today?
Good. I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Beautiful Santa Fe.
Awesome. And so you're on this tour with Craig Finn, and it's not a typical opener and then a headliner. Y'all are pretty
We're
much like
together.
sharing the stage together for the whole time. I'm
We've been
wondering,
friends for 20 years almost, and our history goes back a little bit before we even met each other because we were aware of each other's music and fans of each other before we actually met and became friends. And this is the third time I've done a full-on tour with him. I did the Truckers toured with Hold Steady in
oh,
2008, which did the whole country. We did the whole circle for a month, and was kind of a life-changing tour, I think, for both bands. It
mhm,
really, because our fans, we had separate fan bases with a little bit of connectivity and overflow, and I
mhm.
think that tour definitely increased both of our fan bases from the others and from each other, and so it was a really great tour. Plus, we just became friends. And then Craig and I did a solo tour with Will Johnson,
Oh,
who
wow.
used to be with Centromatic and is now in the 400 unit. And of course, one of my favorite solo artists also. We did a Europe tour in 2012, and we've been talking about trying to do something like that in America ever since. So this is Craig and I, and then we've got one guy playing with both of us. We're all together on stage. Guy plays Ben Hackett, who's incredible,
Yes. Hmm.
and he was in my band I put together in the spring to tour my solo
Yes.
record. He was in the Sensor Rounders, and he plays keyboards like vintage synthesizers, and then he also plays woodwinds. He plays clarinet and flute and saxophone, and he also plays guitar and bass and sings and about everything else too. But on this tour, he's doing woodwinds and keyboards, and it's awesome. And so we're having a great time. And then for tonight only, we're also being joined by Alejandro Escovedo, who's just truly one of my heroes. And so there's going to be an extra special night tonight or tomorrow night. Tomorrow
Yeah,
night.
yeah. And you and Alejandro have played shows together. Like y'all go
But
pretty
not
back.
enough. I
Yeah.
mean, just a
Hmm.
little. Like over a period of 20 years, we've played a handful of times, and I mean, I'm a huge fan, and we're friends. And he, a member of his band, is one of my closest friends, Scott Dembaum, who's
Hmm.
actually going to be in town tomorrow for that show too. And
Hmm.
because he was in Centromatic, and he and I actually toured together in December last year on one of my solo runs. We did Texas shows together, and so it's a lot of history up there, and it's a lot of storytelling on part of the show. I mean, it's as much stories as it is songs, and so it's a lot of that and some good banter back and forth, and it's been cool.
Awesome. And so when you share a stage with somebody like Craig, when you're doing a duo tour, how do you kind of construct the set list? Do y'all kind of like separately go like, okay, this is what I want to play, this is what I want to play, and do you meet together and be like, okay, what do we do? Or is it kind of like
Anyway,
spur of the moment?
yeah, we sent each other a list of 10 songs that we thought would be probably good to cut from, and maybe a few extras thrown in. And then we basically, like, we got together for a couple of few hours before the first show and kind of ran through everything and hashed out a rough set list. And it changed slightly from the first to the second night, and then it's kind of been pretty solid. There's been a few songs that have swapped around, and that's been cool. But it's been it's cool. It kind of became its own thing really organically and quickly, and so we've just kind of run it. And then every night feels different because every day is a different day. So it's been cool.
So you've said you've kind of been playing the same bunch of songs each night, and that's a bit different than when you go Drive By Truckers because I
Sure.
feel like almost you don't know like as a fan's perspective what y'all are gonna play, and you could play
We don't.
anything like
We don't.
yeah, and I think
Truckers
that's
don't do a
fun.
set list, and it's just anything goes. And we have about 150 songs, I think, at any given time that we kind of can pull from, and we get up. We decide the first, maybe the second song before we walk on stage, and from then on, and we know what time it's got to be over. We know the curfew, and then it's just back and forth between Cooley and I, and it's a lot of fun. We've kind of turned it into a sport, to see how quick we can run song to song without it train wrecking, without a set list. And we've got hand signals like baseball
Mhm.
players,
The
and
code, yeah.
it's fun, and it's like I said, it's about as close to sports as I get. Uh, but yeah, this is it's a little more structured just because, I mean, Craig's got a lot of songs, but I think he wants to make sure he's playing songs that we at least know fundamentally how to get through. Although I think I could probably wing it on most of his stuff because I'm pretty, intimately, I'm a big fan, so I know his material pretty well. And I think Ben can play anything. And likewise, we're not trying to stump each other,
Yeah.
but when I pulled one out the other day that we hadn't played, he killed it. So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And so before you were on this tour, you did a summer tour with Drive By Truckers and Deer Tick, and then before that, you were touring with the band that you just mentioned. The how do I can't say the name.
Surrounders.
Send Surrounders, yes, and
So
Ben Hackett was in it.
long, long ago, before
Yeah.
anybody out there was born, there was in the 70s, there were disaster movies. And it
Hmm.
was a big thing in the 70s, for about 4 years. There was like the studios were trying to outdo each other with disaster movies. And like Poseidon Adventure and Towering Inferno and Earthquake and Airport 75. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them. And they started, after a few years, when the novelty started wearing off, they started trying to think of ways to get more people to come see them. And for Earthquake, the studio invented something called Sensurround. And they basically would come into the theaters that the movie was booked in ahead of time and put these giant speakers in the back. And it was like basically subwoofers, which, was a novelty thing in those days. It wasn't like, everywhere had subwoofers. They put subwoofers in the back, and when it came time for the Earthquake part, they would run this, and it would give the illusion of your seat shaking. It was like super loud bass tone, and it was silly. And then they put it on a couple of other movies and then moved on. But there's references to disaster. This movie's about my child. This album that I'm touring behind is about my childhood. And I was a big disaster movie nut. I went to all those movies as a kid, and I was looking for a name for the band. And there's a reference to like a movie in Sense Around in my song Exploding Trees, which is about a natural disaster.
Yes.
And, and so I thought, that's the name of my band. So I named it that. And I think it might be the best band name I've ever thought
No,
of.
I love it, because I actually, even though I could not pronounce it, I do know what that means because I'm a big like movie and pop culture nerd too. And so, yeah, like sense around surround sound. And I did get that reference and I
Right.
love that.
I love
But
that.
so you had that tour with the band. And what was it like kind of when you're doing that set list? Were you kind of flexible with them or because like you had this new album that you want to present, you obviously want to highlight it, that was the focus, and then maybe you could kind of pepper in some of the other stuff. Like, how is that? Especially because this was your first solo album in over a decade. And I
Yeah.
know you toured a lot kind of solo, but have you
It
toured
came
with a
together.
solo band?
Yeah, it came together really easy. I kind of I had a pretty good idea of what I wanted to do months before we actually got to do it. And so I had a pretty rough list of a set list like 6 months before I even
Mhm.
got to put the record out and do it. Because there's definitely some songs I wanted. the whole show to be, obviously the record's 45 minutes and I'd be playing an hour and a half, maybe slightly longer. So I picked out other songs that somehow connected with those songs on the record, either songs that were, personal stories from my childhood or during the period of time that my record encompasses, or just songs that would just go well with them. And it was actually pretty easy. It came together really quickly, and I was really proud of the show. We recorded a bunch of the shows, and I might put some of it out. I'm going to put out like a companion piece record next year because I've got a few leftover tracks that didn't we had to I didn't want it to be a double record, so there were a few songs left over from the recordings, and I've got some live stuff, and I'm going to go in the studio next month and record a few other things that I think would work well for it, and I'm going to put out like a follow-up record, but it's connected to that record. It's I've been calling it a companion piece to Exploding Trees.
Wow, I love that. And I really love this record. And I think, it makes sense that it is a solo record versus Drive-By Truckers. And this has been talked about in previous interviews because it tells a story of your childhood, but the song starts at Exploding Trees and it happened like on your 30th birthday. And then it
Right
kind of
before
ends,
that.
yeah, it's bookends. So it ends with Pinocchio and it's just kind of telling other songs about your youth and childhood and growing up and personal experiences. When you set out to work on this record, was that always the theme, or did you realize like these songs that you had put aside that weren't used for DBT, like, oh, like did it kind of come to you as you were building it? Like, this is this, and we're gonna
So
make that a whole
weird.
story.
It's the weirdest thing, I mean, our band and even my solo records too, there's almost always a theme. I mean, like
Hmm.
almost even, I mean, obviously Southern rock opera is, very literally a concept record, but to me,
Hmm.
they kind of all are to at least a varying degree. And somewhat even in the writing of them and putting together of them, there's definitely running themes in each of our records. And but when I was making this record, I was absolutely not even thinking the least bit about that. I literally, over a several year period of time, kept a folder for some songs that I thought would be fun to work on with Chris Funk, who's a
Hmm.
buddy of mine in Portland. He plays in Decemberists and
Yes.
amazing player. And he and I had done some shows together in the Northwest after I moved up there, and we had this ridiculous chemistry. And I thought, man, I want to make a record with him. I want to do something that's really different from what I normally do, as different as I can make it, that still has my voice and my playing, because it, like it or not, it's pretty recognizable voice and stuff. But I wanted the rest of the record to be as different as it could be from my day job. And so that's what we did. We recorded the songs from that folder. And it was about, it ended up being, I think we cut 13 songs or something. I was mixing it and putting together a final sequence for it is when it first dawned on me that it was not only told a story, but it was actually probably the one of the tightest narratives of anything I've ever written. I mean,
Hmm.
it tells a very specific story backwards from
Yeah.
right before my 30th birthday to my early childhood. Couple of things are a little out of place timeline wise, but
Hmm.
it pretty much starts at
Hmm.
the end and ends at the beginning. And I thought that was cool. And that wasn't intended either. I mean, I sequenced it based on sonic, the way things sounded and just the way songs sounded together or apart, and where they flowed. I wasn't paying any attention to the lyrics when I sequenced it, and yet it's weird. I mean,
Hmm.
it's such a concept record, and but totally accidentally. So I guess I just can't help it. I guess that's just the way my brain works, even in my just subconscious brain, which I guess makes sense because I am a storyteller by nature,
Hmm.
and I think I was wanting to be a storyteller probably before I even started learning how to write songs. So that's always been, somewhere related to what I do as a writer.
Wow, that's awesome. And so kind of back, tying the album is super personal. But what is interesting about this album, it's not kind of just like you with a guitar, like singing these personal songs. It is backed by a full band of amazing, not only amazing musicians that you had come and play, and then of course, Chris, who produced it, but you had a lot of other musicians who collaborated on songs with you, Waxahatchee, Lydia Loveless, Wednesday. How was it like taking stuff that is, obviously it means a lot to you. It's coming up from your personal life, and then deciding like, okay, I want Katie to sing on this, or I want, these people to back on this band. And I think you had Phil Cook involved too. Is that correct? Yeah. And so like,
I made
this
a
is,
dream list. I just
yeah,
like
this is my
dream
dream
list,
team. Yeah. Like, this is what
and
I want. This is my story.
every
How,
person I asked said yes. I mean, every single one, and which I was really blown away. There were a few people on the list that we just didn't get a place. There just wasn't a place for them. So I've still got a bit of a dream list of some people maybe that in future things I'd like to collaborate with. But you know, uh, I mean, and some of them I knew real well. Like, I mean, Lydia's a close friend, a
Mhm.
buddy, and she ended up being part of the band and the sense
Yes.
around her, and so that was, but I didn't know if she'd want to do the song. The song is real personal, even, I mean, her part, she's actually basically playing the part of like my high school sweetheart in the
Yeah.
song, and that's not the nature of our friendship, so asking her to do that was a little
Mhm.
bit scary, but we're
Yeah.
close enough friends to where I knew if she said, fuck you, dude, I'm not singing that shit, it'd be okay. We wouldn't be, it wouldn't
Yeah.
be awkward next time we saw each other. It would just be something we'd laugh about. It's like, dude, I'm not singing that shit,
Mhm.
which fair enough.
Yeah.
But she didn't even answer me. She let me stew on it for about 3 days, and then she sent me back the track with her on it. It's like holy shit, and it was incredible. And what
So
I sent
good.
her was just the demo. I planned on like actually, I just wanted her to hear it. I just wanted to get her signing off on doing it, and then I was going to record it for real for the record. And when she sent it back, it's like, I'm not touching this. It's perfect. So we just mixed it and put it out as is and became a single, so I guess it was an okay demo too. But uh and then and then of course, someone like Waxahatchee, like, Katie, I mean, I've met her a few times and
Mm.
she's lovely, she's a sweetheart, and I'm a huge fan.
Me
Huge,
too.
ridiculous fan. I'm also friends with Kevin Morby, and they're a couple.
Yes. Mhm.
And I wanted him to be on the record
Yes.
too. And they both, you know, took time out of their crazy busy schedules and
Mhm.
sent me back an amazing track, and
So good.
that became a single. And
Hmm.
then Phil and Brad Cook, I'm friends with both of them from way back. I loved their old band Megaphone, and I've followed both of their careers ever since. And
They did Waxahachie's Tiger's Blood.
oh, I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, there,
Yeah.
Brad's the the in my book the top producer in the world right now.
Hmm.
He's just producing just more great records a year. That new Mavis Staples record is
Yeah.
incredible. So I was really thrilled to have them involved. And Steve Berlin is an old friend. We've been talking about wanting to do something together. Los Lobos is one of my favorite
Uh,
bands, and he's one of my heroes. And he came by to play sax on one song and ended up being a pretty integral part of the record, including playing flute on the Pool House, which is
me.
incredible part that he did on that. And had Colleen King playing viola. She's amazing. She used to play with Brandy Carlisle, and she's played with Decemberists, and I mean, she's played with a ton of people. And I think she's played with Craig Finn before. And
Wow.
but she's played with the Truckers too. She's been on several Trucker songs through
Hmm.
the years. But uh, she was great. Everybody on it. Stuart Bogey is an amazing
Hmm.
woodwind player up in Brooklyn, and so it was a lot of fun. It was a fun record to make, and of course Chris Funk did a great job producing it.
Yeah.
And and so it's cool.
Yeah, and you got Wednesday too, and y'all go way
Yeah,
back. I feel like you were
love
like one of
them.
the early founders of like Wednesday and MJ Lenderman. That's how I found out about both of those uh, artists
Yeah,
was from you and
I'm trying to be the president of their fan club. I'm a huge fan. First time I heard them, it was kind of love at first listen, and I totally just got what they were doing just hearing their early stuff. And then,
Mhm.
the three records they put out since then have just each one just keeps getting better and better. Carly's an amazing writer, and I could totally hear her voice in the Van Pelt parties.
Mhm.
And sure enough, what she did was amazing. And having Jake and Zandy play on that too was great. MJ Linderman and
Yes.
Zandy and from Wednesday. And uh, yeah, it's cool, and and so it's I love making records. I wish I could do it more often. I would, uh, when you make one, then you got to go out and tour behind it for a couple of years, and so it makes it longer before I get to go back in. But
Mm,
I love the recording process very much, and the older I get, the more I enjoy that actually.
yeah. Well, and I bet that was fun for you too because like it seems like so much of a different experience than what you're normally used to. I mean, you've been collaborating with Cooley for several decades now, and this current
About 40
lineup,
years.
this current lineup of DBT have been together for a while, and
Yeah.
y'all have like your distinctive kind of I'm sure you have like a distinctive kind of way that you kind of approach an album. So I'm sure like being able to kind of come up with your dream supergroup and have some people that are playing different styles, different sounds, different instruments that you might not normally hear on some of your work. I bet that was probably fun to kind of brainstorm and put together as well.
It was very fun. I mean, honestly, everything about this whole experience has been really, really joyous for me. And now God, it's up on 2 years. I mean, I did the demos 2.5 years ago, and
Hmm.
uh, recorded the basic tracks in January of 24. And here we are towards the end of 25, and I'm, still out doing it. So it's fun. It's been a fun project.
Yeah, and so in the companion piece that you're talking about, and if you can't talk about it, I understand. But
It's
is that
okay.
going to
Yeah.
be like
Yeah.
more of like a? Are you having any collaborators on that, or is that kind
Yeah.
of just something that you're
Yeah.
working on by
Yeah, I
yourself?
got I got a few things up my sleeve for that. And it's going to be I want it to hold up as its own thing so that, you don't have to have the other record for it to make
Hmm.
sense or it to be. I want it to stand alone, but at the same time, it's like a very close first cousin or maybe even sibling to the other record. And yep, that'll be good. And meanwhile, I'm working on trying to write songs for another trucker record, which we're going to start next year. And I got a lot of work to do between now and then. But I think it'll be. I'm looking forward. It's been too long. It's been a while since the truckers have gone in the studio together, and so we're
Yeah.
we're pretty excited about getting in there and getting the process started and shaking some things up maybe too. It's like it's kind of that time right now, I think, to
Mhm.
see what else we can do. So let's see.
That's super exciting. And then I wanted to kind of bring back to Wednesday and MJ Lenderman. And, I see you as also kind of like a tastemaker of like not only music, but like movies and TV and books. You're always giving great recommendations. And I really value everything that you kind of put out in your social media and interviews when it comes to that. But how was it for you finding like Wednesday and Jake? Because like, they're like not only are they like great up and coming musicians and they're kind of taking these sounds from like the 90s and even before and making it new and bringing in a new audience of like people in their 20s like around my age, but with Wednesday and MJ are both so vocal in the fact that they're truckers fans and that they were raised on the truckers and Wednesday covers Women Without Whiskey and MJ does Uncle Disney a lot. And so how was that like for you to find this new band of like really talented kids, but then to figure out like that you were one of their like major influences. Like, was that kind of a full circle moment for you?
I mean, it makes me feel really good. I mean, for sure, for sure. Uh, you know, no artist wants to be forgotten.
Yeah.
So we're always glad when people from the next generation, or in my case, maybe the next and the next,
Mhm.
generation, latch on to what we do. That means a lot to us. And of course, when you hear somebody that you know talks about us as an influence, but what they're doing is so great on
Mhm.
its own that I'm just like, I'm proud, it's like, wow, it's like I'm really, I mean, they they're great artists that I would be a big fan of, whether they had heard our music or not. They just, what they're doing is so cool. And so, I'm just kind of honored that they like us too. And and I do pride myself on I try to keep up. Obviously
Mhm.
there's so much music that comes out now. It's hard to keep up with everything. And, I'll hear something that'll be 5 years later. It's like, where's
Yeah.
that been all my life? But I do try to keep up best I can. And, uh, I've always kind of rebelled against the notion of the best music was made when I was in high school and
Mhm.
everything now sucks. I've always rebelled against that notion because I don't believe that. The world's different and we're culturally in a different place. So
Mhm.
rock and roll isn't maybe leading the zeitgeist like it was in the 70s or something, but it's still a valid art form that I love dearly. And to hear people not only doing great stuff within that art form, but expanding the art form and being successful, which is helping my beloved. Sometimes I refer to rock and roll as my beloved dying art.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not dead yet. It's like when I hear MJ Linderman's record or Wednesday's record or Geese or which is a record I've been really really loving this year, and Friendship and
Mhm.
the and Flory, and I mean there's
Yeah.
so much cool stuff happening, and of course not to mention Waxahatchee and
Yeah.
Kevin Morby and all that. So there's so much amazing music still being made. And and so when I hear something that I love, I post about it. And I'm I guess I'm flattered that
Mhm.
people trust my taste enough to where they'll click on and listen to something sometimes, that and if it makes a few new fans for some good stuff, then that's great. And it's likewise, I'm a movie fanatic. I go
Mhm.
to I try to see as many movies a year as I can. I wish I could read more books a year. I'm been slower in my reading the last few years than I like to be, because I've had so much going on. My life has been
Mhm.
crazy, crazy busy the last few years, but I mean,
Mhm.
even busier than normal the last few years.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping by next year to be able to have some more time to read too, and hopefully to do some more writing too, of like, because I have a book thing I want to work on that I'm way behind on too, that I'm hoping to get back to before too long.
Oh, you should definitely do that because no, I feel you on the reading too. I feel like I try to keep up with like music, and then I feel like movies and TVs I've fallen back on since I started school, but I have a huge stack of like books that I got from the library that I want to read for like research and stuff. And I was like, making the time for that is a bit harder. But yeah, I really do value your taste. And I think it's how I've gotten how I found a lot of like my favorite musicians was just kind of hearing like what my favorite musicians post about on social media or what they say is an influence. And I kind of just went go down this rabbit hole. And I think that's a fun way to kind of find music. And it was really cool to see like Wednesday and MJ. I got to see MJ at Proud Larry's in Oxford,
Wow.
Mississippi. Yeah, it's tiny, tiny
Tiny,
place. Yeah, it
tiny
was just
place. Yeah, I
in
remember when
it.
they did that.
Yeah, it was
I
crazy.
had a friend who was there, and I would have loved to have seen that. I mean, I want to see Jake anytime. MJ Linderman anytime I get a
Yeah.
chance to see him.
What I wanted to mention about that show was like, of course, that was like incredible, and that was the most I've heard talk to people at the venue, and they said that was like the most packed they've ever seen it. Like it was all the way into where the restaurant is. People were there, like just standing and listening, and it was all kinds of different ages too. Like there was like a lot of people my age, but there was a lot of like older people, but there was like fathers with their daughters, and it was like really neat. But after the show, I just thought because it was a small venue, like just in case, like I run into Jake, I had a vintage, like I don't know, we were feeling calling it vintage, but I had an old Dirty South promotional sticker from when the album was originally pressed. I found it at a record store. And I was like, if I see Jake, I want to give this one because I think it's so cool that there's more people in, like, because Jake and I are the same age. I think he might be like a year older than I am. That like, the truckers and the same music that I do because I kind of struggle with my peers to be like, I'm listening to this, and they're like, "Who's that?" But yeah, I told
Who listens to those old guys?
Jake, and I was like, you should put this on if you want to put it on a road case or your guitar or whatever. I gave it to him, and he was like super excited
Hey, I
to
got to
receive
ask you,
that.
who's your friend? You've got a friend
Oh,
behind
oh, that's Cashmere. Yeah, that's my cat.
Cashmere.
She's
Awesome.
my
Hey,
roommate.
Cashmere.
Yeah, she's just chilling. I have my headphones on, so she can't hear it. But yeah, she's also a fan.
All right.
Yeah, but that was a cool experience too, like seeing them in that room and being able to give him that, and he was so excited to talk about y'all too. He speaks like very highly of y'all.
He was in LA. He surprised me in LA. I didn't know he was in town. And he and Kevin Morby came out to the show. And so it was a sweet surprise. We had already finished the show and I was just gotten backstage and the door opened and there they were. It's like, ah, and I hadn't seen Kevin since before he recorded that part because he
Oh
before he
wow.
recorded, he sent it to me. I sent him the track and he sent it back and so I hadn't gotten to thank him in person and so I got to thank him in person and of course it's always a treat to hang out with MJ Linderman. So it was a fun hang.
That's awesome. And tying to that more, you just recently played Schulzfest, and I wanted to
Mhm.
know, like, what was that like through your experience? Because you just did the in the round set, so it was you, Jason, and Chris Tompkins, but I'm sure that was a big experience for you because that was your hometown, and your
Sure.
dad had so much involvement in the local music scene, and Spooner and Dan played right before y'all did, and Jackson Brown. And was that kind of like, from your point of view, was that too? Because you also got to spend Sunday watching MJ and
Oh,
Waxahatchee,
it was
and you
so
got to be
fun.
reunited with Jason. I wanted to hear your experience about that
It was
weekend.
all so fun. It's funny because the night I met Jason for the first time, I can vividly remember our conversation, our very first conversation. And in it, he talked about Chris Tompkins and Jackson Brown. I swear to God. And there was a point when we were on stage together, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, Jason, Chris, Jackson Brown, who was standing on the side of the stage watching it, and it's like man, this is just so full circle, God, what year would that have been? So 25 years later,
Mm.
because I met Jason in the fall of 2000. We had just recorded Southern Rock Opera when I met him, and uh, so it was yeah, it was crazy. It was a crazy full circle thing a quarter of a century later.
Yeah, and then to be there with like Spooner and Dan, and like I saw like your dad was side stage, and then even to
Right.
have like your current favorite artist playing on Sunday, and then having your old friend, I'm sure like that was cool. Yeah, the Jackson Brown thing was wild. I had talked to Jason's mom during the festival too, and she was like, him and Chris used to study those albums, and like they
Right.
would just do it for hours and hours, and so to see him like sit in for Take It Easy, it was like crazy. I had
Right.
chills watching that.
Yeah. It was yeah, it was great. It was really really great, and to be honest, Jason's mom graduated from high school the year before me. So it's kind of funny how it spans the generational thing.
Yeah. I love his mom. She's wonderful.
Yeah, she's a trip. She's cool.
Yeah, she's great. Well, kind of tying Jason, y'all played Decoration Day. That was one of the final songs y'all played at Schulzfest, which is very fitting because y'all just put out the definitive Decoration Day vinyl box set on Friday. And it wasn't, for some reason, I thought it was the 20th anniversary of Decoration Day. I was like, wait, no, that album didn't come out in 2005. It came out in 2003, but it does kind of seem like very much of like an anniversary thing. What made y'all kind of decide to revisit that album? And then kind of like following up on that, like making it on a vinyl box set because it seems like this has been a pattern. You did it with Southern Rock Opera and The
Right.
Dirty South, and now this. So I want to hear more about the definitive Decoration Day and kind of how
Well,
visiting it
we did,
now.
when those records came out initially, I mean, I'm a lifelong vinyl nut. I mean, I've been
Me
buying
too.
records since I was 8 years old. And I've still got those records, and I took really good care of them. So they're like all like the record. My childhood records are like clean and no scratch. I mean, I'm, you know, pretty meticulous with my records, and I've got over 5,000 now. And so,
Whoa.
when those records came out, vinyl wasn't really selling a lot. And finding, we put out Southern Rock Opera initially ourselves, and we didn't have the money to put it out on vinyl because we were selling, we took every penny we could get just to press up enough CDs to sell on the road, but we didn't have money for vinyl. And when we signed with a label a year later and they re-released Southern Rock Opera, they honestly did a real half-assed job with the record. They didn't remaster it for vinyl. They just like
Hmm.
basically stamped some and did a half-assed version of the cover to put out with it. And for years I've been real unhappy about that because they own that record now. And every time we would get Southern Rock Opera to sell at shows, and I'd think I don't even want to sell it because it doesn't sound that good. And so I've been
Hmm.
wanting to redo, like remat properly master it for a long time and do the packaging right. And through the years, now of course record sales are a big thing, and
Hmm.
we sell a lot of vinyl. And so the people who own those records now are much more interested in doing something nice with it. So it's kind of been a long process in finding the timing that doesn't interfere with what the band's doing with new stuff, but finding the time to revisit those records and kind of bring them up to speed. And we did Dirty South first, and the reason we wanted to do it first was because there's been some things about that record. I know it's one of our most beloved records and people love it, but I've always been unhappy about some things about the way it came out initially, uh, due to just battles we were having with the record label at that time and things like that. It was shortened, and to me, I wanted to hear it like the way we had imagined it. So we did the complete Dirty South first, and it turned out really great. And
Hmm.
people were very excited about it and loved how it turned out. And the packaging was beautiful and all of that. And then right in the midst of all of that, when that was happening, is when Wes Freed passed away, who does all the artwork for our band and did all that beautiful artwork that those record packages showcases. So we did Southern Rock Opera second because we were going to do that tour, and we were going to
Hmm.
tour behind it and revisit. People have been wanting us to do a live Southern Rock Opera thing for decades, and we've always said no. It's like, well, this will be a good year to do it. Let's do it, and let's do
Hmm.
the reissue of that. And in the midst of doing that, Barbie decided to remix it too because he thought he could tweak it and get it better and then
Hmm.
remaster it and do the packaging. And that one turned out really good. But we kind of saved Decoration Day for last because of the three, that's just, if I had to pick one record, that's the one. I mean, that's it, that record was always just a little bit extra special and for us. And also, I think the art packaging for that is so good too. And so we really put extra care into this one as kind of a tribute to Wes. And because I wish I'm sure up in heaven he's looking through the booklet going,
Oh yeah.
looks really good, you know, with
Yeah.
his on, and I like to picture him up there shaking things up, and in that beautiful way he always did.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I love the attention to detail y'all put into physical media. And I think it is so important, especially when everything is so digital. And a lot of people are finding music digitally these days to have like this intentional thing and not just like, because I've seen with like some bigger artists, they'll just put out like, or here's an album that like you can easily find. And then it's a remastered and there's like no bonus tracks or anything. Like it's just the album on a colored vinyl, but the way that y'all did this is like so intentional, like a box set tribute to Wes with different artwork on the box than it is on the actual album cover, and then the booklet with the notes and the pictures, and then like you have a lot of different colored vinyl variants. I think that is so cool. Like putting in an album that, y'all love, but a lot of the fans hold it very highly, myself included. I was just listening to the remastered version. I was like, this is a perfect album. Like it's very like
It's a pretty
it's
good one.
yeah,
I'm
and
not to be all conceited or anything, but I'm, all these years later, you know, when we were addressing it to, it's like we didn't want to change anything because
yeah.
we liked it as is, you know. Barbie remixed it because, but his mixes were very true to the original mixes. The things that are different are very subtle things that just make it just sound a
Mhm.
little better. You know, it's like he's not to get too technical, but he's got
Mhm.
a Neve board now, which is like,
Yeah.
there's only, probably 150 or something in the world. I mean, they're pretty
Wow.
rare because, you know, Neve has passed away. And so
Mhm.
they're handmade by the guy, Rupert
Wow.
Neve, and they're beautiful. And he's got one of those boards. So just running it through that just was like an added warmth because they're just it's all tube and it sounds so amazing. And then we got Greg Calby to master it. And Calby's one of the top two mastering engineers in the world. And he just retired. And Decoration Day, as it turns out, was one of the very last records he'll ever master. And
Wow.
he mastered John Lennon records. He mastered
Whoa.
the original release of Born to Run, REM
Wow.
Reckoning. I mean, the list of stuff he mastered is
Incredible.
unbelievable. And he's mastered the vast majority of our records because we
Uh-huh.
started working with him when we originally did Dirty South in 2004. And he's mastered all but one of the records we put out since then. And only didn't do that one because of a scheduling thing, a conflict we couldn't overcome. And I've always regretted it. So that we didn't push the record back and wait for him, honestly, because it would have been
Mhm.
better. But the last record we put out that he didn't master was Decoration Day, and
Wow.
I always wished that one of all records I would love to
Mhm.
have had him do. So having him do it right before he retired was just incredible. And then like 2 weeks later, we get an email that he's retired. It's like, so last
Wow.
one. So
Yeah, timing is everything. I mean that gives me chills. That's see, and another thing that is in the box set that we haven't talked about that I think is definitely worth noting is that now it didn't really come with bonus tracks, but it came with a whole bonus album of an
I
acoustic performance of y'all at the Flicker Bar. And what was it like? What made you decide that show? And what was it for you kind of going back and hearing that? Because I think it's so interesting because that album is so electric. It's such a hard rocking album to kind of hear the remasters and then hear the three of y'all like stripped down doing it. It's interesting. It gives it a cool contrast.
have to credit Matt Etkin. He works for New West, and he actually used to
Mhm.
work for us. He worked for us. He probably was started working for us around the time that we did Decoration Day, and he used to run our. We used to do our merch sales out of our headquarters in Athens ourselves for a
Mhm.
long time, and he kind of ran that for us, and then went to work for New West later on, and he kind of was like the project manager of this whole of the three reissues we did. and through them. And uh, so he approached me about, wanting something, a bonus thing, and he found the recording of that show. I didn't even realize, or I'd forgotten that it even got recorded, and I certainly had no idea that it still existed. And he found the recording of the Flickr show, and when he sent me that, and I heard how well it sounded, I couldn't believe, just the rough tape of it, not mastered or anything. It sounded really cool. The crowd
Mhm.
was loud and boisterous between songs, but they were mostly quiet during the songs. Uh, and it was like literally like a microphone in the room, just picking it up, kind of, I guess, a stereo mic setup, recording it. And that was it. And we were, I don't know, it was a lot of fun putting that together. But I got to give Etkin the credit on that. And but that was a cool night because we had just recorded the record about 2 weeks prior, and we were all in town in Athens to. We were nominated for Flagpole Music Awards that they have every
Mhm.
year. We got nominated for a bunch of awards that year for Southern
Mhm.
Rock Opera, and we decided to all go to the awards ceremony, and we all uh, bought a bunch of like vintage suits, like old suits, and dressed up. And which dressing up was a really rare thing for us in those days.
Yeah.
My dad drove over to come, and we ended up winning, fortunately, the awards that night, or else it would have been embarrassing for my dad to drive all the way over and but all the hype and then get shut out. But it all worked out. But since we decided to do this like after party thing at Flickr, which is tiny, like
Mhm.
75 people. And that's crowded 75 people. And
Mhm.
since we had just recorded Decoration Day, it's like, well, let's just play the new record like acoustic in front of whoever wants to come over. And we all had a few drinks in us and were pretty loose, and but not too loose. It was kind of, we were all at that perfect point. And so it was a really really fun night, and to hear it documented like that, and to put it out as a companion to the record, I was really excited about it because I'm generally resistant about a lot of bonus stuff because
Mhm.
generally it's just like, let's just tack some crap on here to try to get people who already bought it to buy it again. Basically,
Mhm.
it's kind of how it often feels. And I don't want to put anything on there that detracts from the original record. But I
Mhm.
thought that with Southern Rock Opera, there was a few things that happened in the recording that was worth, I thought, putting on a little bonus thing. And then for this one, having the Flickr show was just kind of perfect, and it kind of made a statement, and it just captured something about where the band was at that moment in time, because it was a very special moment in time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like everything that y'all do, and especially when it comes to like making albums and box sets, it would seem very intentional. And it's like it's another cool like kind of companion piece too that you can hear like two different interpretations of the album. And I think that is a cool bonus that adds to it. And I was really excited to listen to that.
Well, thank you so much.
And so, continuing with the definitive Decoration Day, some exciting news came out last week that you are going to reunite with Jason. It was your first planned performance in almost 20 years and play a song on Colbert. How did that come about, and how do you feel? Are you excited? I'm sure you're over the moon. And is it going to be fun
Yeah.
to kind of reunite in that television landscape versus just like joining him on stage? Because y'all have done that quite a few times over the years.
Um, we have through the years, but nothing like this, nothing that was like planned in advance publicly
Mhm.
or anything like that. But it just worked out. He was uh we got the offer to go, and to be on Colbert. And of course, I would love to. And it just seemed like a lovely thing to get to do to kind of celebrate, this record coming out and um, all of that.
Another thing that I wanted to talk about that's coming up is the Heathens Homecoming in February, and it will actually be my first time attending. It is, for those unfamiliar, a yearly event that y'all do in kind of your adopted hometown of Athens, the kind of where the DBT
This will
headquarters
be our
is
26th
housed. Yeah.
year.
Wow. So I wanted to talk about that and kind of how you got started with that and your thoughts on this year in particular, maybe what we can expect, especially for me because it'll be my first time. I'm very excited.
Yeah, we there's a there's a nonprofit in Athens called Nucci Space, and
Hmm.
they basically provide services for musicians, but with an emphasis on suicide prevention because
Hmm.
the suicide rate for artists is you know, awful, terrible, and
Hmm.
it's awful, period. But
Hmm.
artists, it's the numbers are pretty bad, and Athens has so many amazing musicians, and through the years we've lost some,
Hmm.
lost some really beloved artists in our town. Did a benefit for them in 2000, right before they actually opened their doors, and that kind of became that kind of set the pattern for what has become Heathens Homecoming. And the Heathens is a song from Decoration Day, and
Yes.
our fans have kind of adopted that moniker as a name for themselves. Fan base, they have started calling themselves Heathens after my song Heathens. And so
Hmm.
it just kind of became Heathens Homecoming. And of course, if you spell out Heathens, it says Athens in it, which I had
Yeah.
no idea until Wes Freed did that as part of the artwork for, I believe, Decoration Day. And
Hmm.
where the cars going past a road sign and it says Athens 12 miles or whatever, and like graffiti with the HE. It's like, oh man. So it became Heathen's Homecoming. And so this will be the 26th year that we've done
Hmm.
it. And next year it'll be President's Day weekend, which is it always is pretty much nowadays, and which also usually includes Valentine's Day, which will be
Hmm.
Saturday. So we'll be playing Wednesday through Saturday, and with different openers. And this year we have a little extra stellar bunch of openers, kicking off Wednesday with MJ Linderman, and who I'm just, I mean, he's obviously way bigger than opening for the Truckers on a Wednesday night, but he's doing it as a just support everything, and because he's just a sweetheart. And then we have T. Hardy Morris on Thursday,
Hmm.
which he's done a homecoming before, and I'm a huge fan. He's done one solo and one with a band he was in years ago called Dead Confederate. But he's
Hmm.
uh he's going to be doing the Thursday night, and then Friday night we'll have the Camp Amp band, which is
Nice.
like young people, like 19 and under, a lot of them,
Wow.
in their like high school, and uh, uh, it's like a School of Rock kind of camp done through Nucci Space, and they put together kind of an all-star band from their campers to play homecoming every year as part of it. So that'll be on Friday, and as well as a band called the Lanes, which is a band with a lot of personal connectivity to the Truckers, because uh, the two brothers in the Lanes, the Lane brothers, uh, used to be part of a band called The Possibilities. That was like a band that I played shows with when I first moved
Yes.
to Athens. And
Uh-huh.
the drummer, Matt Lane, was the original drummer in the Truckers on the first two records. And,
Wow.
and Jay Gonzalez was later a member of The Possibilities
Hmm.
before he joined the Truckers. So
Yeah, yeah. Jay was, I interviewed Jay back in the summer. He told me that. Yeah.
So they're playing on Friday with the Camp Amp band, and then on Saturday it's going to kick off with Flory from Philadelphia, and I love their record, huge fan, and that's going to be a really fun way to end the weekend. So it's going to be super special. It's
Yeah,
almost sold out. Some of the shows are sold out, but there might be a few tickets left for a couple of the nights. So
Yeah, I'm super excited because I've never been to any of the homecoming shows before, and like I said, I've only seen y'all twice. So to be able to see you guys like 3, 4 nights in a row is going to be so much fun. And then kind of heading on to that, so it's more than it really is a homecoming because the fan base from all over comes and gathers and goes to this, and I think it is so awesome because I've been following music pretty much my whole life, but I've been in a bunch of different fan bases or observed a bunch of different fan communities for all kinds of different bands across different genres and age ranges. But I think there is something so special about like the Heathens, and I've met like some of my best friends through y'all. Courtney, who runs the Facebook group, she's one of my
Uh,
my closest friends, and
yeah,
Anna and
she's
Ashley Barrett and all of them. And so, what does it mean to y'all to not only like have this fan base that comes together, sees y'all, but they're all doing stuff for like Nucci Space, or they're all like spreading awareness, or like being all these friendships have been made because of the band. And not only are we all going to see y'all, but a bunch of us are just going to hang out with each other too. Like, what does that mean, like for you, as your band, to kind of create this safe space for so many people?
I don't know. I mean, it's all everything, you know, we're pretty, everything's pretty organic in our organization.
Hmm.
We are all good friends and we are close, and I'm, you know, even, like with Jason Isbell, even people in the band that aren't even in the band anymore are
Hmm.
still kind of part of the collective family, you know,
Hmm.
mostly, whenever possible,
Yeah.
and definitely prefer it that way. And there was the community of Athens, Georgia, and especially, Nucci Space and the 40 Watt Club were very integral in our band surviving the early days and all that we've kind of built. So, it's a good, so it's a good kind of, annual hug to, get all of that together and really celebrate the community that enabled us to do what we did and have done and what we continue to try to do. So in Athens is I grew up in the Shoals area, which I love, and I live in Portland, Oregon now.
Yes.
But Athens, Georgia, I spent 21 years in Athens, and that's where I met my wife and
Mhm.
started my family
Mhm.
and formed the Drive-By Truckers. That's where the truckers are still based, and it's where
Mhm.
the deepest connectivity of my friends in the world, it kind of grows out of Athens. So Athens is very much home for me. You
Mhm.
know, even if I have several homes, Athens is the most home of all home, kind of for me.
Kind of wrap things up. Anything else that you want to kind of mention that we haven't? Anything else you have coming up? We have the solo dates at the end of the year. I guess in December you'll be in the South for a little bit. But anything else that we didn't bring up that you maybe want to?
I bet we covered it pretty good. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it
Thank
just
you so
like,
much.
yeah, it really means a lot having you on. Like I said, like I like y'all's music has really helped me through a lot. I've had like a bunch of friends now, but when I kind of first gone into y'all, I was alone in Florida in undergrad, and I felt like I don't know, like something was missing, and like I really can relate to Pinocchio, like like talking about movies and stuff, and I'm also neurodivergent, and so. I've kind of turned to like music and movies and stuff as kind of finding my people. And so through your band, I've met some of my best friends and have like so many great memories now. And to be able to have you on has just been like such a dream come true. And you taking the time
I'm
out of
honored. Thank you.
out of your busy schedule to come and talk to me is just it really means a lot. And I'm really excited to see you in Huntsville and to see you at homecoming as well.